If your sales call show up rate isn't quite where you need it to be or where you want it to be, and you know that you're leaving hundreds of thousands or even millions on the table because your sales team is being underutilized, and you know that if you could just get more people to show up and get in front of your sales team who has that ability to close, you know that would have an instant impact on your business. I'm going to show you a few tips today on how to immediately get that show up rate over 80% or above. And I'll talk through as well, even those people that do ghost you or don't show up for your sales call, how we can immediately follow up with them, close them for your high ticket sale, and do that without having to ask them to get on another sales call again and raise the opportunity that they ghost you for a second time. So if it's the first time joining one of my lives, I'm Brian Czekanski, and I help coaches and experts in businesses in particular 10x their high ticket programs and coaching programs in particular. So one of the things that I always ask the partners that I work with, kind of the first questions that I ask just in that information gathering stage to get a sense of like, okay, can I really help them? Is obviously going through the certain metrics of like, okay, how many leads are you getting on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? Because I only work with partners that are active, like have an email list and are growing that email list on an ongoing basis, or have a Facebook group, or just have some kind of again, it could be an SMS list as well. We want to make sure that we're growing that on an ongoing basis, just because that's key to not only the growth of your high ticket coaching program, but anytime you're seeing growth, for me, you're always seeing people fall through the cracks. So again, starting with like how many leads are coming through the door on a weekly and monthly basis. And then there's different funnels as you go through. You might have a VSL, you might have a webinar, you might have a low ticket type of program, and you're trying to move people up to a high ticket program in that way using a sales call. So I just want to get a sense of like, okay, what's that momentum look like? How are people moving through that? And again, I want to work with businesses that are winning, and I want to help them win more in terms of that. Just because that's a little bit easier for me, just personally looking at that. But again, that's kind of where my expertise lies, is like helping winning companies just really get really quick and instant increases in revenue. Again, it could be 5 or 6 figures that is kind of hiding right underneath their nose from a revenue perspective, and it allows them to scale from their high ticket perspective really quickly. And again, a lot of that just becomes, all those people that are falling through the cracks. So again, you have people that maybe aren't booking a sales call after watching your webinar or your VSL. Those are people that I can interact with via email, SMS, or DM, and be able to close them through those avenues without having any sales calls whatsoever. And then the other important part, like the part that I really want to know, is like, what is your show up rate for people that book a call, that want to get on a call with your sales team, and they just don't show up? Like, to me, those are motivated leads. They're looking for change. They were kind of bought in at some level in your webinar, your VSL, or with your low ticket product enough that they were able to kind of allocate a portion of their time to show up and have a discussion with your sales team, but they didn't end up showing up. So it's kind of like a highly motivated lead, a highly motivated potential buyer that I want to have to start have that conversation with without asking them to jump on a call for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Because again, they've already developed a pattern of like, okay, like I'm not going to show up once, so let's not make the same mistake twice, and having that show up rate. So like, again, in a lot of the coaches that I talk to, they have show up rates anywhere from 50 to 80%. 80% is probably the high end of what I've seen. And 50%, if you've got below 50% in terms of those sales calls, we're going to fix that today in terms of like how you can position your sales calls and how to develop a little bit more value so that people show up for them, they're excited to participate, and eventually you can go through that process and turn some of those leads into buyers, or those low ticket buyers into high ticket buyers along the way. So it's easier than you think, but it's a way of kind of positioning your sales call in a way that shows that it's valuable, and kind of moving people along the process. So again, like if you're at 50% right now, or maybe even 60%, in these things that I'll talk about, just really 2 simple things that I'll talk about to kind of bring that up to potentially 70, 80%. And think about like how that's going to affect your business. If you can go from like 50 or 60% in terms of that show up rate for your sales team, and getting to the point where it's 70, 80%, it's going to give give your sales team a lot more at bats. It's going to give them the potential to win well. And again, most of the sales team, especially if you're building out a sales team, everything's working well, like they might be converting at 20, 25%. if you got enough lead flow coming through. So like that's pretty standard. So you have drop off there as well. So like those are another group of leads that I love to interact with, because again, they've kind of showed up for the call. They're motivated. There's something about your marketing that caught their attention, but for whatever reason, it wasn't the right time. They have a question or objection that salesperson wasn't able to solve, and I'm able to kind of come in and complement what your sales team is doing, have that follow-up conversation with them, and eventually move them to being a high ticket customer. So high ticket for me is somewhere between 5 or 10 or 20 or 30K. So like high ticket for me is 5K or above in terms of what we're talking about. So let's talk about the show up rate in terms of what you're doing right now. So like the important part to really realize is that sales call should really be thought of as kind of like its own container. It's an offer in and of itself. So like if you're not thinking about your sales call as almost like its own separate offer, like you might be sitting there as the business owner thinking like, yeah, my sales calls are just an avenue to get people from becoming a lead to getting into my program, and the sales calls are just that vehicle to kind of bridge that gap. But if you're that person that is looking to join, looking to schedule a sales call, like what's in it for me? Everybody's asking the question, what's in it for me? And if you're just saying like, okay, this is a sales call to see if you qualify for my X high ticket program, you're going to get those show up rates of 50, 60%, because at the end of the day, if they say no to your program, or if they if they find out that they don't qualify, they just wasted 20, 30, 45 minutes and they walk away with nothing. So like, again, the idea is to really think of like, why is this time that I'm scheduling with you super valuable? In the same way that you're marketing for your program, talking about all the benefits there, we want to create almost like a separate offer around that sales call, so that everybody that walks away from that sales call, even if they say no, they feel real good about the time that they invested. So it's really about like almost giving them the little breadcrumbs. So you've probably been in the supermarket. I knew growing up, when I grew up in like going to the supermarket, what I used to always get excited for was like those free samples that they handed out at Costco or any of those other supermarkets where you can kind of try out different things. It was a way to kind of get a sense of like, okay, what does this taste like? Is it something I like? Is it something we can try? In the same way, your sales call is a way of doing that. Like, how can we how can we almost give them like a taste of what your coaching is all about? And I would say like, you don't want to get on sales calls and start coaching people all the time. Like, again, that's a separate video that I'll link up to up top. Like, we don't want to get into an hour-long coaching session. We are trying to coach people. We want to keep the focus on it being a sales call, but we want it to be valuable. So like, we want them, again, if they say no, or I can't afford it, or any number of different objections, or maybe they just aren't the right fit for your program and you say no to them, like, we want to be able to take them from, they come in at this level and we want to get them to this level. So they want to walk away. So like an easy example that I can tell you is I used to work for a business where we had a low ticket offer. It was an info product where we sold it for $37. And right away, we kind of almost like tricked people to get onto a sales call. It wasn't something that I felt great about. We called it an onboarding call. And the idea was that, okay, they bought this info product and they got on this onboarding call. The idea was, again, we kind of tricked them onto getting onto this onboarding call. It was a way to like get to know your goals a little bit better, but all it was it's just a sales call in disguise. And that really backfired for us. Like, we obviously made money. We had a great sales team. They were able to monetize a certain number, probably about 25% of those leads that were showing up. But what happened is we had a Facebook group of community of anytime anybody asked, put in a post in there of like, hey, what's this onboarding call all about? Like, new customers would come through, say, hey, I got an email about this onboarding call. What's it all about? Every single time, the people in the community would say like, hey, it's just a sales call. Please ignore it. If it's a complete waste of time, please don't do it. Like, so the end benefit was like, our customers saw no value in it. If anything, they were telling other customers, new customers, saying like, completely avoid it altogether. And that's not what you want. We want this to be at the end of that sales call. We want them to make sure that they found value in that. So we'll talk about in just a second how you can start to build up some of that value. But again, thinking about like at the end of that, whatever time you schedule on their calendar, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever your case is right now, we want to build up the value of it. How can we give them some of the breadcrumbs of what they're going to find in their program? How can we give them some of those aha moments? And for different industries and different coaching programs, it's going to be different. but it might be just a belief shift that they might have. It might be just giving them an aha moment over what's possible. It might be sharing some testimonials of people just like them that had the same level of beliefs and got to the other side. Like any number of those things, people can walk away and say, "Hey, I found value in this." Because okay, now I know it's possible. Now I have a new set of beliefs that will carry me forward to either doing it myself or joining another program or whatever it is. Like we're not going to convert people 100% of the time, but we want them to walk away with value, feeling good about the time that they invested. If anything, investing their money is important, but almost investing their time is even more important. So again, how can we make it super easy and kind of give them those breadcrumbs along the way? So again, in your sales calls, how can you think about either you, if you're holding the sales call, how can you give some bits of value along the way? Without doing a ton of coaching, without spending 2 hours coaching that person up along the way, but really little small breadcrumbs, little free samples to kind of move them along in the process wherever they are right now. Again, kind of moving them from Hell Island to Heaven Island. How can we just kind of start moving them in the right direction, get them moving in the right direction, regardless if they've joined their program or not? And the second part is really thinking about like, okay, once they do show up, how can we give them the incentive? How can we create kind of like a series of carrots to make it really important that they show up? So again, this could be as simple, anytime you have a sales page or VSL, you have a list of bonuses that are out there. Start thinking of, and your audience really well, like what are those 2 or 3 bonuses that you could attach to somebody actually showing up? Could it be a masterclass that you recorded? Could be a recording from a live event that you did? Really thinking of like what are those things that are top of mind for your audience? Something a little bit more specific than your overall program. What are those burning hot button issues for your potential prospects they want solved, and how can you create that? And again, it could be a recorded video, it could be a PDF, any number of things. You should mix these up as much as possible. But if you have 2 or 3 bonuses that kind of incentivize people to show up, again, even if you're not able to deliver value in that sales call, the thing is you can, in that follow-up to that sales call, that's when you can deliver an email to them and say, okay, here are those 2 or 3 bonuses that we promised you. These will deliver instant value for you, even if they didn't join the program or not. Again, that kind of it starts to build that goodwill of like, okay, like you invested your time in this. Here's all these exciting bonuses that will, again, get you going in the right direction. So even if they jump on a sales call and say, okay, this isn't the right program for me right now, or this isn't the right time for me right now, what it does is start to build that relationship, start to build that goodwill of maybe 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, or even maybe reconsidering their decision a week from now after going through your bonuses. So think about like those specific things. How can you leverage stuff that you've already done with your existing clients? Maybe it's a short, again, it could be hiring a copywriter to write up a 1 or 2 page PDF that gives them a quick win in terms of, those problems and symptoms that they might be dealing with right now. How can you give them a quick win, get them results going right in the right direction? How can you build a relationship with them? And again, mix them up as much as possible. One could be a PDF, one could be a video, one could be a podcast, a interview that you haven't released yet. Like how can you increase the value of these things so that once they do read that or watch that, they will get a little bit closer to that Heaven Island that they're looking for along the way. So again, think of like, okay, in your sales call, we're gonna build kind of an offer around that, give them kind of breadcrumbs on what they're gonna, make it a no-brainer type of opportunity. Like anytime you're joining these sales calls, here's all the benefits that you're gonna get from it almost immediately. Here's what other people have said when jumping on a call with my team. And then on top of that, you're going to get all these amazing bonuses that are super specific to a problem that your list is dealing with right now, that will give them value, that will build that relationship, regardless if they say yes or no to your program in that instance. It's going to further that know, like, and trust factor and make it more likely that people are going to refer you. They might reconsider their decision if they said no. And then the third part is really thinking of like, okay, there's always going to be people that fall through the cracks that don't show up for your sales calls. Going to happen regardless if it's 10, 20, 30, 50%, depending on what your show up rate is now. Like you should have a process on the back end that re-engages those people, and not an email or a text message that says like, hey, I know you missed that sales call, let's jump on another sales call. Like for some people, they just don't want to jump on a sales call, or they don't have the time to jump on a sales call. So again, that's where me and my process can kind of step in, because again, like I am not jumping on sales calls with any of your high ticket prospects. I'm in just engaging with them on whatever medium makes most sense for how they came in. So it might be SMS, it might be a Facebook group, it might be a direct message, it might be email. Email is typically how I start, but it could be a direct mail letter that we send out as well to start the conversation. So it's just really opening that conversation again with them and not asking for them to jump on, asking for their time. They respond back when it most makes sense for them. And the same way on your sales calls, I'm doing the same thing. I'm qualifying people. I'm getting to know what their background is. I'm personalizing the offer for them, answering any questions, objections they might have, and moving people through that are qualified and right for your program and getting them to the other side. Again, all they get to at the final step is kind of that shopping cart where they put in their name, their email address, and they're kind of signed up for your program right away. So like as much as possible, I am delivering high ticket clients for you on a silver platter, kind of doing that work for you, kind of a done for you type of process. And again, it's very complementary to your existing sales team, or if you're doing sales calls yourself, like you're always going to have people that are falling through the cracks, either not booking sales calls or not showing up for your sales calls or saying no on your sales calls. That might be a few hundred leads. It might be a few thousand leads. And again, I might not be able to convert every single one of them, but typically what happens, again, if you're doing ongoing ad spend, typically what that represents is, again, 5 or 6 figures per month that I'm able to generate on your behalf, deliver for you, and you don't pay anything up front. I take on all the risk. I obviously don't work with everybody, but for the right partners, I work with them, do it on their behalf, and move people through and close those clients. Again, all those people that fell through your cracks, I'm able to re-engage with them, move them through a sales process, all without a sales call, and deliver them for you on a silver platter. So hope that was helpful in terms of your show up rates. Again, if you're at 50 or 60 or even anything below 80%, think of how you can increase the value of that sales call. Put some bonuses on the end of that. Again, it could be a video, it could be a PDF, it could be something that's kind of just sitting in your back pocket that you have to dust off and give to people. Again, it takes some testing to see what people find the most value in, but like, again, it could be something that you gave to your mastermind members a long time ago, and you're giving to your leads right now. And the whole idea is to build up the value of that call, build up that know, like, and trust factor, and move people along in that process and make them show up. And even if they don't show up, even if they, again, it's only giving those bonuses to those people that do show up. And I'm really thinking about, like, again, that offer container for you, and then having that complementary process of building an additional profit center, of re-engaging all those people that don't show up or book a call. Like, that's all potential revenue for you to potentially pick up if you have partnered with the right expert. Again, there's plenty of people that do it just like me, but if we were going to have a conversation, there's plenty of opportunity to pick up 5 or 6 figures of lost revenue that's really sitting there under your nose. You've already paid Zuckerberg for it, those leads, or Google those leads. You might as well get the most for a potential return on investment, and testing out a process like mine, which doesn't step on the toes of anything that your sales team is doing right now. So hope that was helpful. Hit that like button on whatever platform you're watching on. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Always talking about how you can improve your high ticket sales, generate more of those 5 or 6 figures of revenue that is kind of like really sitting there underneath your nose, whether you know it or not. And with that, I'll see you on the future live.